Hello Daily Drafters, and welcome to the Magic the Gathering The Hobbit pre-release guide here on the channel designed to get you ready for your pre-release events this weekend. This video will be full of useful information for beginners to seasoned veterans, whether this will be your first ever pre-release, or if you're looking for the Hobbit's specific information such as a rundown on new and returning mechanics, limited archetypes, and more to make sure you are on top of your game at your LGS. So whether you're new here or you've been here a while, stay tuned for the ultimate guide in helping you crush your Magic the Gathering The Hobbit pre-release. Now, some of you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a pre-release? Well, each year there are roughly 6 main set releases of Magic the Gathering products, and most local game stores run what's called a pre-release for each of these main set releases. Essentially, you battle it out against your friends and strangers using several booster packs of the brand new cards from the upcoming set that has yet to be released, hence the name pre-release. If this sounds interesting to you, let's take a step-by-step look at exactly how these events are run. Step 1. Locate your local game store. In order to participate in a pre-release event, you'll need to find one. If you do not already have a local game store that you frequent, I've included a link in the description to a website that will help you find a game store running an event near you. Now that you've found where you'll be participating, it's time to get registered. Usually stores will run events all weekend, maybe one on Friday, a couple on Saturday, and another on Sunday, so check with your LGS to see when the events are happening and which ones you want to attend. Be sure to note that sometimes these events do fill up fast, so you may need to pre-register to ensure you have a spot. It just depends on your store. Other times you can just walk in and register on the spot, but be sure to find out what's best for your situation. Now that you're registered, it's time for the fun part. When it's time to start the event, you will get handed a pre-release kit, like the one on your screen now. For this set, there is only one kit that you can receive. For some other sets you might get a choice, but for the Hobbit we've got just this one. Now that you've got your kit, when the event begins, you'll be instructed to open your kit and begin your deck build. It varies from store to store, but usually you will have about 50 minutes or so to build your deck and get ready for your matches. Let's take a look at what you'll find when you open your kit. Inside you will find 1 traditional foil rare or mythic rare from the Hobbit, 6 Hobbit play boosters, 4 non-foil full art seasonal Hobbit basic lands, and 1 20-sided spin-down die. When it comes to the contents of your booster packs, each Hobbit play booster will contain a variation on the following. 7 commons, and this is usually where we have a special guest slot that takes over, but this set doesn't actually have any special guests. You'll also get 3 uncommons, 1 rare or mythic rare with varying art treatments at increasingly lower hit rates, and examples are on your screen now of those art treatments. 1 non-foil wildcard of any rarity, which has a 74% chance to be a common, a 4% chance to be an uncommon, and a 20% chance to be a rare or mythic, and you can also find varying art treatments of cards in this slot as well, all at less than a 1% chance. 1 foil card of any rarity, which has a 60% chance to be a common, a 29% chance to be an uncommon, and an 8% chance to be a rare or mythic. And once again, here you can find varying art treatments of cards, all at a less than 1% chance. And the final slot will be a land card that has a 50% chance to be a basic land of varying art treatments, and a 50% chance to be a common dual land. Alright, we now have everything we need to begin our deck build. If you'd like to see an example of a Hobbit sealed deck build, stick around until the final segment of this video, which is timestamped below, where I will build an entire sealed deck on your screen for you to follow along with. After you've built your deck, you will then be assigned an opponent by the event coordinator and you will play out your first match. Different stores will give you different amounts of matches for the event, but usually it's a minimum of 3. Sometimes you might get lucky and be able to play 4 or more, it just depends. But after you've finished your matches, you may qualify for some prizes, so be sure to check with the event coordinator to cash in on your winnings. So what I'm going to do now is go over some of the notable mechanics for the set, the themes associated with the draftable archetypes, and just give you a general rundown of what's going on in the Hobbit before I do my deck build, so we both have a better idea of what to look out for. The first new mechanic we have is Storied. Storied is a static ability that looks over the permanents you control, waiting for 2 things to be true. Number 1 is that you control a permanent with Storied, and the other one is that you control 3 or more artifacts, legendary permanents, and or sagas. Now technically these are all historic permanents, but they won't be keyworded as historic in this set. As soon as both of those things are true, you have what is called an enduring story for the rest of the game. Having an enduring story can turn on various abilities of some cards, like in the case of Thorin Oakenshield, who gives your artifacts and creatures Ward 1 if you have an enduring story. Now, once you have an enduring story, nothing can take it away from you, even if you lose one of those historic permanents. It's basically like a Planeswalker emblem. The next new mechanic we have present here is Recruit. Recruit is a new keyword action. When you are told to recruit, you first draw a card, then discard a card. And then, if you discarded a non-land card this way, you create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Now, Recruit is almost identical to Connive, except for the fact that the payoff is a 1/1 token as opposed to a 1/1 counter. Here, the Queen of Dale allows you to recruit each time your opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn. The Hobbit also brings along a new type of counter, which are hone counters. Various cards in this set will put hone counters on equipment, including Sting Bilbo's sword, which does so for itself. Every hone counter on an equipment gives +1/+0 to the equipped creature. Simple as that. Two prominent returning mechanics in this set include Adventure and Amass, though this time it's worded as Amass Goblins. So if you need to brush up on either of those mechanics, be sure to do that before your events this weekend, as these are returning mechanics. That does it for the new and returning mechanics, so let's check out the draftable archetypes that the Hobbit will feature, each of which are visible on your screen now. We're once again stuck with a set that only features 5 draftable archetypes, and rather than hopping back on my soapbox with regard to the topic, let's just take a look at what each of them are and what they're focused on. You'll notice that each of the 5 supported archetypes has a creature type associated with it, along with a keyword. So let's start with Blue-White, which is a humans deck utilizing the new Recruit keyword. Most of these 5 decks are going to be pretty self-explanatory when it comes to what to look out for, particularly because they're typal decks. So just look for good human cards and cards that pay you off for having humans, and you should be well on your way. The Recruit keyword is a great way to build a board of additional humans without needing additional cards to do so. The Black-Red deck will be a deck focused on the creature type Goblin, and will prominently feature the Amass Goblins keyword. Remember that each Amass army can only go tall with 1/1 counters and not wide with additional bodies, so this deck may play out as more of a can I get my big goblin army deck as opposed to a let me go wide with a ton of goblins type deck, so be sure to keep that in mind as you draft your goblins and goblin payoffs. The Black-Green color pair cares about wolves and the Ferocious keyword. Remember that Ferocious is a keyword that cares about you having at least one creature with power 4 or greater. This deck will also feature several wolves and payoffs for having wolves, but will also care about you controlling at least one creature with power 4 or greater to turn on all of your Ferocious payoffs, so keep that in mind during your deck building. Red-White may still end up being the most aggressive deck in the format, but at least it isn't billed as simply an aggro deck this time around. This time it gets the Dwarf creature type and will play with the new Storied keyword the most. You'll have a lot of considerations to make when you build your red-white decks in this format, as you want dwarves, dwarf payoffs, but also a decent amount of historic cards and cards that make historic permanents to make sure you can enable your enduring story at some point in the game. Our last supported deck is the Green-Blue deck, which cares about the elf creature type and the landfall keyword. In our first trip to Middle-earth several years ago, the Green-Blue deck was also an elf deck, but cared about scrying and payoffs for doing so. This time it gets landfall, so look for elves and elf payoffs and ways to trigger your landfall permanents multiple times per turn. Now, the hardest part about the whole event is building your deck, but good news, I will now go through an entire Hobbit sealed deck build to give you an idea of what you want to be looking out for in your pool of cards and how to maximize your chance of having a competitive deck for the event. Okay, welcome to the deck building portion of the video here, and before I get started with building this deck for you, I want to kind of show you the interface that I've got going on as I do with each of these videos. If you are interested in doing this on your own at home and practicing, you can do these couple of websites that I use to make this happen. The first is draftsim.com, which is over here in this blank space next to me. If you go to draftsim.com, you can create sealed pools. You can do practice drafts against bots of sets that haven't been released, including the Hobbit here. And they actually just revamped their website. It looks really nice over there since the last time I did this, so it's a really nice place to generate these sort of things. My habit is to bring it over into this interface that you see right now, but the deck building interface over there is probably improved. You could do it over there, but I'm used to this interface, which is sealeddeck.tech. So if you go ahead and generate the pool over on DraftSim, copy the pool, paste it over here into sealeddeck.tech, you will get this version of your sealed pool that you see, and then you can get to building. So without any further ado, let's take a look at this practice Hobbit build that we've got and see what we can find. So the first thing I want to do is look at your rares and mythics. So you can sort by rarity. You can do this in your pool this weekend at the pre-release as well. And take a look at what rares are good and worth trying to build around. I'm not going to go through every card here. I'm going to go through kind of the notable ones that pull me in certain directions, just so you can see. And I won't read everything as well, because I want to preserve both my and your time here. So we've got Radagast, which is a great green creature. Bejeweled Warg is a fine, good green creature. It's not any sort of bomb or anything. Getaway Barrel is pretty bad. Don't really want to play that too much. The Eagles are coming, and there we go. Okay, and the Lord of the Eagles are kind of like flyer build-arounds, which maybe there's a sub-theme of blue-eyed flyers going on here. Interestingly, there isn't a ton of flyers. I can sort by flying over here on the left, which I kind of cut out of the the screen here. But this is all of the creatures in our entire pool that fly, and in blue and white we just have a couple others, including a couple colorless ones. So something like Lord of the Eagles is probably not at its best here. And then you really don't want to be casting the Eagles Are Coming if you're not returning flying creatures and making flying stuff as well. So let's go ahead and get rid of the flying type here and take a look at what else we've got. Uncover the Moon Letters. Whenever you cast, a non-creature may draw X, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. If you do, discard 2 cards. Gosh, it's really hard to justify 4 mana do-nothings here in 2026 Limited, so probably not something I'm looking to play. Not here. And then I've got the Master of Lake Town, which is a nice little death touch creature. Rovanian Rampager, which is a nice little wolf that kind of cross-synergizes with a mass goblin, so it's a good one there. And then Supper for Spiders. I don't think this is more of a commander card. Put onto the battlefield, under your control, all creature cards in your opponent's graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn, and they are foods in addition to their other type. You know, it's cute for some commander strategies, but these are really the only rares I'm kind of looking at. I guess Radagast is probably the closest to a bomb that I would say. The other ones are quite good, and then Warg is just a nice solid creature. Remember that I mentioned in the mechanics and the archetypes for this set that there are only 5 supported archetypes, so be sure that the direction you think you might be going based on your rares is one of those supported archetypes. You're very rarely not going to be in one of those archetypes in Seal, so you might be base black, green, splash something else, or etc., but keep an eye on those 5 archetypes here. Now, the next thing is I usually kind of look at which, uncommons will pull me in a certain direction. We have 3 in this pool. We have the Blue-Eyed Flyer uncommon. We have Bulg of the North, which is the black-red. Amass Goblins uncommon. And then Thranduil cares about elves here. One thing I did notice when taking a look at my entire pool, there is a ton of black here. Now, is it all great? Maybe not. I haven't gone through it all. But the fact that there is this quantity of black, and 2 of my best rares are in black, means I'm probably pretty likely to be black. Something you want to look for also is your density of removal. We've got Pinecone Strike, which is a great removal spell in red. Not much else. We do have Spew Flame attached to Smaug the Great Calamity here. Smaug is just a common here, and it's that 7 mana 5/5 flyer that can deal 5 at sorcery speed for 5 mana as an adventure. Not a ton of other removal in black. Where are they? We've got the Stir Up Trouble, which you can sacrifice an artifact or creature, pay 4 to kill something. And then there was Gnashing of Teeth, 5/5/5 exile. That's kind of the extent of our removal in this pool, which is not great if we're being honest, but you gotta play what you got, so you can't really do much else about it. Because black-green is a supported archetype, I would take a look at both the black and green cards that I've got here. rather than pull all those down for you now, I'm going to see if there's any other archetype that might pull me in its direction with this. I do see 3 blue-green cards here. Mirkwood Nurturer doesn't seem super great to me. It doesn't... I haven't quite figured out the combos this might have with other elves in this set. Don't have a ton of green, and most of them aren't elves, although we do have 2 Woodland Weave Masters, so that kind of is something. The elves would be blue-green. Are blue... Like, if we look at blue-green elves, the Eagles... I don't really like Thranduil's Decree. Gandalf is 5... It's fine. 5 mana, 4/5, ward 3. 6 mana, draw 3 cards and get rid of him. Moonlighter is mentioned, I don't really like. The Nuisance, fine, whatever. Mirkwood Meditator, 4 mana, 3 mana, 2/4. Can turn it into a 4/2. We have the blue removal spell here. Bilbo, couple of elves, maybe only 1 elf over here. Yeah, the Elven King's Harper. It's the only other elf we have. So we don't even have a very big density of elves necessarily, and such a big density of black cards here. When it comes to white, you know, white-red is the dwarf deck, and then white-blue is humans / maybe flyers. But I just see so many black cards here that my instinct is to really build this as a black-green, either wolves or just value deck. I mean, there's just some decent cards in here. Little Bear, 3 mana, 3/2 flash that can kind of put a counter on something and untap another creature you control to ambush them on blocks. Just 2 mana, 2/2 tramples. 2 mana, 2/2 dies. Give something -1/-1. There's just a lot of stuff here that you can really get away with. Duskwatch Hunter cares about wolves as well. We don't have a ton of wolf payoffs, even though this is the wolf deck here. But I am looking towards black-green. So what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and kind of build this black-green deck, toy around with anything else that might catch my attention, and then see if that's where I ended up. So I'll see you here in just a moment. So after looking through the options, I think black-green is probably where I landed. I sort by creature and non-creature here with some lands on the side. We've got Stir Up Trouble, Gnashing of Teeth here, and then Crude Bent Blade is kind of like an edict effect that forces them to sacrifice a creature, which is good enough because we don't have a lot of removal. Protection spell here, draw a card, lose a life, make it 2/2, seems just fine enough. And then you can return a creature and amass 3, and then just a bunch of creatures, including Radagast, which really help make those creatures shine, in addition to kind of making them cheaper. They give them flash. Golem here as well. We don't have a ton of 4-powered stuff, and by a ton I mean like very many at all. Do have a 2 mana 2/2 Death Touch. You can gain 2 life if it attacks while we have Ferocious. This pool, full transparency, is not very good as I was going through it, but you're at the mercy of what you open in Sealed, right? If you haven't really built too much Sealed, you kind of just have to make the best of what you got. And when it comes to Sealed, if you just have a bunch of creatures, some removal and card advantage like we do have here, that can just get the job done sometimes. You know, we don't have the super big bombs that are just like, oh, well, I can't beat that card kind of thing. But you kind of just have to make do with what you got. I mean, we could look at some sort of blue-white thing, but like I mentioned, we just don't have a lot of flyers. Lord of Eagles is going to be like a 9 mana 8/8 most of the time, which is just not good enough. It's way too slow. I guess the other deck that gave me pause was the blue-green elves. I just don't think we have the elf support for that either. Now I do have the Elven King's Halls, and I also put Mirkwood in here, and we do have 2 copies of Old Thrush, which really opens up the possibility to consider splashing in this deck. Problem is, like I mentioned, this pool is just not very good, and I don't really have a great reason to want to splash a lot of things. I guess I could splash like Pinecone Strike and Bulg of the North as red cards, but the more you consider splashing, the less consistent your deck ends up being as well. So this is kind of where I ended up with this deck build. Hobbit's going to be an interesting set here. It looks relatively basic. We're stuck with just 5 archetypes again, but I don't control that, so we're going to deal with what we got. But that is kind of my thought process when going through these sealed deck builds. There is no early access for this set, so I'm going to be playing with it for the first time with you here this upcoming weekend at the pre-releases, and then it drops on Arena next Tuesday for some drafts. So hopefully this helps you out today. Thanks for hanging around. I hope this video was helpful to you and helps you build up the courage needed to go participate in a pre-release event at your LGS this weekend. If you've never been to one before, I do highly recommend it. It's one of the absolute most fun ways to play Magic, and you'll meet tons of different players there. If you do end up going, check back with this video, leave a comment, let me know how it went for you. I'd love to hear feedback from everyone about your event. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of this video, and I will see you soon here at Daily Draft.